Wolfpack, what's going on? Your boy, the Wolf at Roto Street, rotostreetjournal.com, where we breed and feed you fantasy wolves. Here with your Week 12 waiver wire ranking and FAAB show. Going to dive into all the names, and there's not a whole lot of them this week. We'll be honest, right up at the top that you really need to pay attention to. Certainly on the first checklist, some actual season winners over about a half a league, just around 50 to 55% rostered. We'll go through those names first. And there are a handful of guys in my top five that I do think could be genuine starters down your stretch runs here in fantasy leagues. And then the rest is a bunch of dart throws. Maybe some pan out, maybe don't. We'll go into all of those names for you guys here on your Week 12 FAAB show. Now, this is not the usual time. We're about an hour earlier than we usually go. This Thanksgiving week, we are all over the place with times, as I'm sure you guys can be understanding of. But if you want to make sure you are here live and you know what's going on, follow me at Roto Street Wolf. I'll be tweeting out updates when I'll be live. And also, of course, subs, bells, all that good stuff. As some of the gang that just is here regularly, love to see it. Hit that thumbs up as you come on in to help us get out to more people, to help the channel continue to grow here as we get towards the end of November. Want to hit that 2K sub goal would be awesome. Let's get on in, though, and hit that first checklist. As I mentioned at the top, there are definitely some potential league winners on this first checklist. Number one of them being Elijah Moore. This guy is an absolute stud. We knew it in the preseason. We were so high on this guy. It only took about half the year for him to get cooking, but damn, is he doing it so far. 8 catches, 141 and a TD this past week, also getting 15 yards on his only rushing attempt. He, more importantly than just the sheer production, finally had a full-time role. 80% of snaps, 81% of routes, 11 targets, was nearly 30% target share there. You absolutely love to see this. He is now the wide receiver 1 in fantasy since week 8, since Zach Wilson got knocked out, truly. Now, Zach Wilson is going to be back this week. I wonder if that will shackle him. I imagine he's played so damn well, Elijah Moore, that he can supersede whatever crap Zach Wilson's going to be to him. He will have that full-time role moving forward in a very soft schedule, too. You got to love Elijah Moore as a locked-in every week starter, still out there in right around half of leagues. Make sure you go correct that, as well as with Cam Newton. He is definitely locked in to a QB1 spot from here on out, certainly heading into your playoffs. One of the easiest schedule. Gets Miami next week. Washington was this last week. It does get a little bit stiffer when he does get to the playoffs, but that doesn't really matter given his upside isn't necessarily through the air, far more through the ground. And we saw this last week with 36% of the rushes going to Cam Newton. They were all designed run attempts. That Konami upside is so real. We saw 26 fantasy points when the guy only threw for 189 yards this last week. 2 scores as well through the air. It's another touchdown on the ground with 46 rushing yards. What a beast. Love to see it. And I do think Miami, they've been a little bit stiffer these last couple of weeks. I think it's a perfect test for Cam Newton to go berserk. And last but not least, especially if you need a tight end, Pat Freiermuth. A lot of people dropping him because Eric Ebron was back. Well, what happened? Eric Ebron is expected to miss extended time, potentially bracing, is the quote, for season-ending knee surgery. Either way, it's going to be an extended absence, and that is huge for Pat Fry, who has gone from about a 50% route rate with Ebron in there, about 50-50. They're splitting it nearly perfectly. With Ebron out, over 70% route run, nearly 22% target share without Ebron in there. And those last 2 weeks without Ebron was the tight end 1 and tight end 2, 3 total touchdowns across those 2 games without him. The every down role for Pat Fry has been a huge boon to his fantasy success. I imagine he'll explode yet again. So those are your guys on your first check, Wolfpack. Be sure to look for those guys first. And again, as you guys come on in, get that thumbs up button. We already got 4 to 5 questions. Love to see that in the live chat. We will get to all those as we get through these names. Please continue to rack up those comments, though. It might be a later show because we are an hour early. So if it is, give you more individualized attention. Get those questions on in, and let's rip through this. At the top of the list, I love Boston Scott for these next few weeks. Definitely a guy I would spend about half my remaining FAAB on, maybe even more if I'm running back needy and I'm heading towards the playoffs, or I need to make a surge to the playoffs, given the fact that this backfield has averaged over 31 attempts per game across their last 4 weeks. Since then, the Eagles have had the most efficient offense in so many categories. Number 1 in scoring per drive, number 1 in rushing yards per game, all that good stuff. They are killing it on the ground. Scott's been a decent part of that. More importantly was Jordan Howard, who is now knocked out for the foreseeable future. already ruled out for week 12, which can't bode well for the next few weeks. Yes, Miles Sanders is back, but they have remained a committee all season. Boston Scott got plenty of goal line work with Jordan Howard splitting that backfield when it was the Howard and Scott show. We know that Kenny Gainwell was in healthy scratch last week, so the distant third here. I imagine this backfield will shake out about 60% Miles Sanders, 35 to 40% Boston Scott, and then maybe a smattering of Kenny Gainwell. But involved at the stripe, involved as a receiver, Boston Scott ran more routes, 15 to 12 on Sunday, compared to Miles Sanders. Certainly will be involved in that aspect of the field. And again, as we emphasize, does carry some goal line upside, some touchdown upside. He had 9, 18, 4, and 12 half PPR points until Miles Sanders returned. He was a top 25 running back in 3 of those 4 weeks. And I think we get right back into that fringe top RB2 type of number. So again, if you need a running back, he gets the Giants, 7th most points allowed, the Jets, by far the most points allowed across his next 2 games. I think Boston Scott can be a very viable play off your waiver wire. Moving forward, a very, very sexy option for the rest of the season, Van Jefferson. Yeah, last time out wasn't incredible. 3 catches, 54 yards, 7 targets were pretty nice. Second on the team to, of course, Cooper Kupp with 13. A nice 17% share for Van Jefferson the last time we saw it. And he did drop an easy touchdown. Lots of drops going in that game. Last time we saw the Rams out there, including Odell Beckham, dropped to an interception, quit on a route. I really do think Van Jefferson has a very real shot to be that clear-cut number 2 ahead of OBJ. Certainly if OBJ doesn't start to mesh better than he did in the first opportunity out there. Yeah, OBJ, so talented, should be the clear number 2, but what a head case. I won't bank on that. And we got Van Jefferson now squaring off first with the Packers, who we just saw get decimated by Minnesota's passing attack. Jacksonville, Arizona, Seattle, Minnesota, and then Baltimore across the remaining games of the season. Only Arizona's a red zone matchup. The rest of those guys are bottom 10 pass defenses. Green Bay as well has been pretty solid, but they got decimated last week, as we were saying. I could see Van Jefferson being an every week wide receiver 2 moving forward, that deep speed. When he gets targeted, as we've talked about multiple times, he's been on this waiver wire list, I think, every single week. When he sees 6+ targets, he averages nearly 15 points per game, and I think 6+ looks should be a regularity this rest of season. Now, if you want something more sure, a little more proven, I got 2 wide receivers for you after Van Jefferson. Devante Parker at 31% rostered, might not even be back this week. He's still on the IR as far as we know, but he's approaching his return date. Last time he was out there, he set season highs in targets with 11, catches with 8, and 85 receiving yards. Also a season high there. He's averaged 65 yards per game, seen at least 7 targets in all the 5 games he's made it through. And he's put up, double-digit points in nearly all of those games as well, averaging almost 12 points per game. The guy has been really solid. The Dolphins are absolutely slinging this thing out, averaging right around 40 attempts per game with Tua there. I imagine, especially even if you don't get him back this week, the fact that he gets the Jets, Saints, and Tennessee all bottom 6 against wide receivers in his fantasy playoffs, the fact that he's averaged 8 targets, 23.7% target share, all very promising for whenever he does come back from this injury. Could be as early as this week, but given the fact that they are now top 10, the Dolphins, in neutral Game Pass scripts, I think as soon as he's back in there, we're going to see some quality numbers from Devante Parker. The schedule, the usage, the talent all line up. And we saw Tua targeting him with regularity, and they finally bonding. Love to see that. Maybe even more sure than him is Sterling Shepard. 31% rostered, someone I would definitely spend about 15 to 20% FAAB, maybe even more if I'm wide receiver needy. Another guy that's not guaranteed quite yet to play this week, but he did sneak in that limited practice on Friday. Did not play Monday night, but then Tony suffers a quad injury. They're going to need him back. And let I remind you, the fact that in his last 5 full games that he's made it through, 10 targets, 8 catches, 112 TD, wide receiver 4. 12 targets, 9 catches, 77 yards, and a TD, wide receiver 11. 9 targets, 7 receptions, 113 yards, and a TD, wide receiver 8. 10 targets, 9 receptions, 94 yards, wide receiver 21, and 14 targets, 10 receptions, and 76 yards, wide receiver 19. That is bona fide high-end wide receiver 2, low-end wide receiver 1, usage, numbers, all of it. And this guy's only 31% rostered, probably out there in your leagues, and not a horrible schedule moving forward. Sign me up all day. Between him, Parker, and Jefferson, if he's on the field, Shepard is by far the safest option. Parker being a little more proven than Van Jefferson, but Van Jefferson having that juice in that offense moving forward. So those are 3 receivers I really love on the waiver wire in most of your leagues. And a 5th one on there, I feel a little less great about this guy, but I think he's at the top of most waiver wire lists, and it does have some real upside coming off 4 catches on 10 targets and 123 yards in a score. That's Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Very boom or bust. That's why he's number 5 on this list in total and number 4 among my wide receivers. But when he booms huge, as we just saw this last week. Saw 32% target share, the highest he has seen since week 3 of 2019. So nearly 3 years ago. Insane. 2 years ago, rather. My fault. But still, season high in targets 10, receptions 4, and yards 123, including that second touchdown of the season. Yes, Allen Lazard was out, but they do get the Bears coming up, one of the most generous defenses, certainly allowing a ton of big plays. Wouldn't be shocked at all after catching a 39 and then 75-yard score. Just peppered again. What else is to say? When you're getting peppered from Aaron Rodgers, it's a great thing. Now, I would like to see it continue without Allen Lazard there. No guarantee to see that at all. But Marquez Valdez-Scantling, definitely an upside. Just a guy you can toss in your flex, and nobody's going to be excited to be facing him. Like, you might end up getting a goose egg and saving your opponent, but he also might, like this last week, put up over 20 fantasy points. That boom upside is certainly worth rostering. Number 1 on a lot of waiver wire lists, and clearly not someone I'm quite as high on the ECR of waiver wires, I guess, if that's a thing. That's Ty Johnson. But if you want to go with what everybody else is talking about, there is a case to be made. At 25% rostered, I would only spend about 10 to 12% of my FAAB. A lot of people advocating 20, 30, 50, 60% of your FAAB. I obviously lean and gravitate towards Boston Scott. Given they're both going to be about 2 to 3 week rentals, I want the guy that's really been getting it done already this year in a much more potent rush attack with those Eagles compared to the Jets. But if you want to settle on the Jets guy, we've seen him be a monster. He's got 4.2 yards per carry this season, a 72% catch rate. So playing pretty solid here. Last year, when he was the starter, he had 1 game as a starter. He did rip up 104 yards on 22 carries. It was a nice performance. And he's had some pretty good games. Admittedly, they came with Mike White at quarterback. I would probably bump this guy up to maybe number 1 on my waiver wire list. Should Mike White be the QB? That's because Mike White targeted his backfield 38% of the time, over 40% target rate in 2 of his 3 games. Was insane. Meanwhile, Flacco comes in and 11% of his passes go to the back. Zach Wilson's going to be starting. He has a 17% target rate of his running back. Not horrendous, but not great either. I do think it could bear some fantasy fruit for Ty Johnson. I mean, the guy did have 10, 10, 17, and 11 when Mike White was the QB, was a top 25 running back in 3 of those 4 weeks and never fell below the running back 30. So 4 straight double-digit games. I do think that upside exists with Ty Johnson. So I can see why people have him towards the top of their list, but not the easiest of schedules after Houston. Nice week matchup this week. So yeah, 1 week rental. And really, what are we looking for on waiver wires at this point? I guess as I talk about him, I'm kind of talking myself into Ty Johnson a little bit more. I just think you get New Orleans, then Miami. Not that tough of a matchup, but not great either. Tampa Bay. It's not the best of schedules moving forward for Ty Johnson. So not a guy I'm going to go blow everything in my load to go get. I hope there's going to be some more useful options. I'd rather maybe slide in for a sneaky, put in almost no money. I'd say 8 to 10% FAAB, but I imagine you only have to pay 2 to 3% to go get DJ Dallas. Had 4 carries for 25 yards and a score ahead of Alex Collins, who, yes, played ahead of him, but ultimately the more explosive back was by far DJ Dallas. He played ahead of him inside the 20-yard line, certainly on receiving downs. They played, again, equal snaps, split it almost right down the middle, but we had 12 routes run for DJ Dallas compared to 4 for Alex Collins, which is what you love to see for running backs. Remember, a target is worth 2.8 times a carry in PPR leagues. So as the main pass catching back, as a guy that, they already have seen what they have in Collins week in and week out. Don't be shocked if DJ Dallas's load continues to get bumped up here moving forward. I think this offense is hideous. It's tough to get all that excited for anyone within it, but they do like using the running backs. Certainly in the pass game, I imagine that DJ Dallas could be a viable option. We talked about some useful wide receivers, and Jamison Crowder has just as high of a floor as anybody out there on your waiver wire. He's seen 6 targets in every game this year. He's the wide receiver 41 in points per game. Nothing sexy. It's not a guy that you're getting off the waiver wire that's going to suddenly tilt your fantasy season and win you a week. But he has a decent enough floor here. Last week, we saw an 18% target share, kind of overshadowed by monster Elijah Moore's breakout, but another touchdown for Jamison Crowder. We saw Zach Wilson love targeting his slot guys, and he's again going to be back at QB. I just think there's a nice floor to Jamison Crowder, and 8 to 10% of your FAAB to get a desperation wide receiver 3 that you're going to get about 8 to 12 points. You can do a whole lot worse, especially on this week waiver wire where it's getting gross. But if you want more of a swinging of the fences, I'm not saying this is going to happen. I don't think it's going to pan out at this point. But Laviska, Shenault at 39% rostered. There's no excuses anymore. First, it was Travis Etienne's down. Laviska Shenault's taking over the role, going to explode. Didn't happen. DJ Chark's down. Laviska Shenault's going to go monster. Didn't happen. Jamal Agnew took over. Jamal Agnew's now down. Who is in this guy's way from reaching the ceiling if it actually exists? Truly nobody at this point. So if Laviska Shenault is ever going to be anything, at least in Jacksonville, I don't think he is. I think it's going to, if he is anything, going to be a kind of a Cordarrelle Patterson, needs to get away, get to some new situation. But if he is ever going to be something, this is it. This is the time. He had 50 receiving yards last week, the most he's had since their bye. Pretty ridiculous. But he moved in the slot. This was the most important part for 50% of his routes. And that is where Urban Meyer's offense flows through, at least in the passing game. That's why Jamal Agnew has become a fantasy force. Yes, we've only seen 6.9 PPR points for the 6 games Shenault has played without DJ Chark. That's why he's been dropped in so many leagues. But if you're desperate, maybe, just maybe, this could be the injury that finally opens up a door. I don't expect it. I don't see it, but hey. We'll take a swig for him. Why not? Tre'Quan Smith. As you can see, this is a waiver wire list that is far more wide receiver heavy. I got a couple more running backs that'll probably make you puke, but could be at least a good source of week 12 value, as we'll talk about shortly. Tre'Quan Smith, though, coming off of 8 targets, 64 yards, both season highs, as was the 5 catches. He's been just like solid since he came back. 10, 7, 12, and 9 half PPR points in his last 4 games. Again, similar to Jamison Crowder. Is he winning you any leagues? No. But is he seeing steady volume, 8, 7 targets across his last 2 games, both team highs? Yeah, that is happening. He's getting the Bills' brutal pass defense coming up. One of the hardest matchups, the hardest matchup for wide receivers. So I don't expect a whole ton coming up here. But following that, you got Dallas, Jets, Tampa Bay, Miami, all of them bottom 10 against the pass. Could be their number 1 option moving forward in those games. There is the chance Taysom Hill takes over at QB. If he does take over, I guess I might as well say this. He'd be the number 1 QB ad of this week, given the Konami upside we've seen there. But he didn't touch the field last time, so we'll believe that when we see it. Definitely a guy, Tre'Quan Smith, worth considering. It seems like Simeon, that's his number 1 guy. So keep him in mind if you're desperate at wide receiver. If you need a 1-week plug-in situation, Cedrick Wilson, certainly like of all these guys we've been talking about, the most explosive offense and a pretty big role on the docket with CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper, both expected to miss this Thanksgiving game coming up. There is a chance CeeDee Lamb plays, is the latest report. If he's in, then Cedrick Wilson can get tossed back to the heap. Please don't start him in that case. But with both those guys out this last week, we saw Wilson play 91% of the slot routes, which again has been an area that Dak has typically loved. He's averaged 3.4 targets and 2.3 catches in 7 games without Gallup. So nothing that crazy, but he did see 17% nearly target share this last weekend. He's had a couple big touchdowns, couple big games. Any volume from Dak in this Cowboys offense is usually worthwhile. Will it be this weekend? I don't know. It is pretty hideous. Gallup will be the target magnet. Maybe he can sneak in against the number 2 corners of the Raiders, who on pass defense, they start out the year pretty stingy. These last few weeks, it's been pretty ugly. So definitely a viable plug and play this week should CeeDee and Amari Cooper be out. If you want some little Thursday action, Thanksgiving action juice. Hey, speaking of juice, I need a quick sing. And we're flying through this list, baby. We got over 23 questions already. I love it. Wolfpack, a few people showing up. If you haven't already, please consider hitting that thumbs up. Continue to help this grow, whether you're here live with us, whether you're catching the replay. It definitely is one of our better videos each and every week. And that's because you guys help it get out to more people, and it's so greatly appreciated. Now we'll talk about some running backs. I got 4 straight running back options for you guys if that's where you're desperate here. We covered enough wide receivers. Let's get to the mud. The Texans backfield. They did waive Phillip Lindsay. Not that that's like all that huge of a move given he had 3 rushes this last week, but it's just one less mouth, one less snap eating potential back. So we'll talk about the guy that led this team in touches. Rex Burkhead last week, 18 carries, did a whole lot with him, right? 40 yards, just abysmal. So outplayed David Johnson in that sense, but is it all that valuable? I don't know. We did see 16 touches also go to David Johnson, who didn't do really anything with it. But he did run 16 routes compared to 7 for Burkhead. Both of them have 3 down skill sets. He did see 4 targets and called them in a 16% target share. So, okay. So which way do you go? If you're full PPR, you probably go David Johnson. Half or standard, maybe you're going Burkhead, the team carrier. The only reason they're even worth mentioning, because a great stat this last week, had 32 backfield carries for 55 yards. Just disgusting. Hideous. Not worth playing any of them ever, right? Oh, wait, they do get the Jets this upcoming weekend. As we know, giving up over 30 touches per game to the running back position, giving up 36 points to the running back position, 8 points more than the next closest team. It's been historically bad against the running back. So even Burkhead and David Johnson could be viable. I don't know that they'll be viable any other week, but if you need a plug-in this week, they might be the best potential options out there in your waiver wire. I know I talked about DJ Dallas recently, Ty Johnson. Ty Johnson probably and Boston Scott the top 2 plug-in plays. But if you just need a 1-week rental, I'd probably put both of these Texans back ahead of DJ Dallas. He's more of the long-term. Let's see what happens if this offense can get it together, if he can carve out a meaningful receiving role each and every week. But you just know a one-week stopgap, who's playing the Jets? This backfield. And it's now only 2 heads to this monster, this abomination of a backfield. Both could be potentially viable. Matt Breida, do you really want to get involved with the Bills backfield? Probably not, especially now it's a 3-headed nightmare. Looking at it, 38% of snaps for Singletary, 32 for Breida, and 29 for Moss. I guess one takeaway from this is you can cut Zach Moss. He's useless at this point. But who has led this team in backfield fantasy points back-to-back weeks? It's Matt Breida at 1% rostered. He's coming off 5 carries for 51 yards, 16 yards on his 1 catch of the day. Looking kind of juicy, though. That's, I think, the only reason he's on this list is if the team has any eyeballs, they'll see he is bringing far more to the table than anyone else. Breida's always had some juice whenever he gets used. I've loved the guy. I can't quit him. So if he could carve out a meaningful role within this offense like Zach Moss had to begin the year, Zach Moss was a top 20 running back for the first 7 weeks. Now he's an afterthought. He's gone. So if Breida can continue to climb, he's kind of an intriguing stash, and let's find out what happens rest of the season. Maybe he can take over. Maybe he can continue to lead this team in backfield fantasy points. He did lead the team. Again, those 5 carries were good for nearly half the rushing back share. That's going to tell you how bad this running back is. 45% rushing share for Matt Breida on only 5 carries. Again, a good enough offense, an intriguing enough talent, making explosive plays. Maybe the team bumps up his role. Of all these names, just they got upside kind of stash guy, as is maybe Tony Jones. Talking about a plug-and-play, Kamara and Mark Ingram did not practice on Tuesday. They play on Thursday. If both of them are out, they don't have anyone else other than Tony Jones. He didn't do shit this weekend. 3 carries for yards. Ew. No targets in the passing game. Remember, though, Tony Jones was so good in the preseason that the team felt compelled to release Latavius Murray. They felt comfortable enough to release a guy that was an enormous role for them last year. So if Ingram and Kamara, Ingram playing 85% of the snaps, averaging over 20 touches per week, that role would go right to Tony Jones. He'd be an immediate RB2. Should we get any word that Ingram's injury is going to, in fact, linger ahead of tonight, I would bump Tony Jones to maybe number 1 on this list. Maybe he's a little too low because he has that type of upside. Just a guy to make sure you're monitoring, more importantly, monitoring Ingram and Kamara's status. One or both could be back, one or both could be out. And if that is the case, then Tony Jones would be a low-end RB2 against the Bills and certainly worth starting in most fantasy leagues. And last and maybe least, Dontrell Hilliard. Now, if I knew Jeremy McNichols was going to miss a lot of time, Hilliard would be above certainly the Texans guys and probably right around DJ Dallas and Ty Johnson range here. We don't know how long McNichols, it was a concussion. I don't know that will force him to miss another game, but if it does, Hilliard could certainly carve out another meaningful role against the Pats. They waived Adrian Peterson fresh off a game where Hilliard led the team with 17 opportunities, had a 19% target share, the second highest a Texans running back has seen this entire season. That's no joke. And he racked up 82 yards, 35 on the ground on his 7 carries, 5 yards a clip, solid. 47 yards through the air on his 8 catches and 10 targets. That's a meaningful role. Who knows if it's going to be steady? And again, if McNichols is back, I imagine he goes and disappears into dust. But if McNichols' injury lingers or they decide, let's turn this over to Dontrell Hilliard, the guy was clearly productive this last time out. So certainly another name to consider. Alrighty, Wolfpack, kind of record time there to get through all of those names. So let us now get on over to your mailbag time. Thanks again, folks, for being here. Let's continue to grow. Let's get that mailbag pumped up. We're at about 30 questions now. Usually field about 50 to 60 on these nights. Get them on in. Let's get you as much attention as you want. You got trade questions. This is the night to get them in there with certainly a smaller crew given the hour earlier start time. We appreciate those of you that did show up even with this going an hour earlier. Thank you, guys. I appreciate your understanding. The schedule is kind of all in flux here during Thanksgiving week. I know you guys can understand that. If you're here with us, please consider giving us that thumbs up, though. Help us to grow and get out to more people. Mean the world. And if you're here, I see some new names already in the questions, and you haven't subbed, it would mean the world to help us get. We're about 80 away from 2K. We want to hit that by November. Would be an awesome achievement for the season. Let's do it. DJ Johnson asking the $1 million question. Zach Wilson going to fuck Eli Moore's value? The number 2 pick shouldn't. He should be a boost to his value, right? But so far this year, that's all he's done. Without, how crazy is it the fact, again, I talked about this at the top, but he is the wide receiver 1 in the games he has played without Zach Wilson. That's insanity since week 8. So, yeah, I mean, I can't say it's going to be a positive, but we just got to sit here and hope that Moore has shown so much to this team, shown so much to his offensive coordinator, that they will not go backwards. They will continue to make sure he sees 11 to 15 targets a game. Like, he is a hog. He should be. He deserves it. I wish Flacco was the quarterback because we know it would happen every week. But could it fuck it? Yeah, probably. But I would say he's so talented that he's put enough on tape. You can't go away from the guy at this point. So maybe he takes a little bit of a dip from the wide receiver 1 in fantasy. I think he takes a dip from that, but I don't know that it's a dip that you can't use. He's in my lineups this week. He's facing Houston. Great week for Zach Wilson to come back and reestablish that rapport. What up, Kurt? Thanks for checking in. Appreciate your comments. Like the video. Yes, sir. Let's fucking go. Indeed, Kurt. Appreciate you tuning in, brother. Worried about Kamara injury and his rest of season outlook from Blue Crew. Chance he sits? See, they are still in the playoff hunt, as is pretty much every team in the NFL. They're right around 500. As long as they remain in the hunt, I don't think he's done for the rest of the season. They did already have their bye, if I'm not mistaken, so there's not like a clear-cut rest him through the bye and he's back. I don't know, Blue Crew. There's been no indications of yes or no. It is an MCL sprain, which is typically a 4 to 5 week injury. He's been practicing and then out. I'm worried too. Yes. Like, is there a chance? Absolutely. He could be out the rest of the season. Certainly if they lose to the Bills, which they probably will this weekend, and if they start to get knocked down further and further, yeah, there's definitely a chance as they get lower and lower that he could be knocked out for the rest of the season. As long as they're in contention, though, I do think we'll see him towards the tail end. I don't think he plays this week. They take a bad loss, and then we really have to worry Blue Crew. We'll find out, though. I have no insider information or anything of that nature. Forgive Jonah. I'll try my best to forgive. Traded Herbert and Ayuk for Russ and Chase. I mean, I think it's a win in the sense that Jamar Chase is by far the best player of this deal. At first, I read it and was like, oh, Russell Wilson, why? Hopefully you have another quarterback other than Herbert, or there's someone out there in the waiver, maybe Cam's out there, because Russ sucks. I don't want to trust him at all. But overall, I think it's the thing is Ayuk is really trending the right way and has such a cakewalk schedule moving forward for Give Jonah. So that, big edge Herbert over Russ, big edge Chase over Ayuk. as long as you have a decent enough QB behind Herbert, I think it's a win. Just because Chase is that damn good. Who to pick up a kicker, Folk, Gay, or Bagley? I would go Folk. He's just been steady. His offense is clicking. Tennessee's got a decent enough defense that they'll probably stall us out a few times. I love Folk. 16 points last week. No joke. Bo Gable, great to see you, man. Ayuk and Herbert. Yeah, so boys commenting on that. Chase, obviously great. Ayuk is stepping up. I guess if Ayuk continues to do what he does, then yes, the Herbert side's a clear win. We've seen 2 good games for Ayuk, so I'm still a little hesitant to jump right back on. But I also love the talent enough that I'm not that worried. I feel like this is going to be the steady performances moving forward. So what you think, Scott or Sanders? For some reason, Sanders 100%. If Miles Sanders is out there, I assumed, he's at 80% rostered. He wasn't on the waivers. It is 100% Sanders. And he would be head and shoulders above any name I've mentioned, including the first checks. I didn't even think they could include him on a first check. Sanders against the Jets and Giants these next 2 weeks alone is going to be a monster without Jordan Howard. I love it. I love Miles Sanders move forward. Yes, Scott's got a good option as his number 2, but Sanders all day, Kurt. Diggs for Robinson and Hunter Renfrow. Give me Diggs. Nah, give me Diggs all day. Robinson's solid, but that injury and offense is gross, and he keeps getting it done. Give me Diggs. I think Diggs is due for a nice stretch run after a couple big games. He's going to keep that rolling. Williams, start 2. Moore, Renfrow, Bateman, Sutton, half PPR. If I can get Jefferson, would you start him? Of course. If you get Justin Jefferson. Oh, you're talking about Van Jefferson, probably. I would definitely lock in Moore. Let's not even consider him. And I'd probably go Renfrow there. He's just, I know this last week was a dud, only 4 targets, but other than that, he's seen 7 targets or more in every game this year. He had 2 17-pointers in his first games without Ruggs there. I think Renfrow, good matchup against Dallas. He's not going to draw Trayvon Diggs. I think that's the play. Moore and Renfrow. Bateman with Lamar Jackson back will be intriguing, though. So I'll do my rankings tomorrow. The show. Tomorrow, William, I can give you a better answer. But right now, I'm leaning more Renfrow. I agree with you. Folk is my number 1 kicker. Can I drop McKissick if I have Gibson, Eckler, Sanders, Wilson Jr., and Carter at running back? Yeah, I think there's a little more juice to Ty Johnson, but you ever going to start Ty Johnson over any of those 3 for these next 2 weeks? Probably not. So it might be more valuable to hold on to McKissick in case something happens to Gibson. In your situation, I'd probably hold. You can drop him for somebody else. You have that much running back depth, but do you need Ty Johnson? Unless you're trying to block an opponent, I don't think so. Hawkins said last week, 0 points. Dan Arnold, 0 points. Good Lord, Rico Baptist. What are the odds of that? Hideous. Awful stuff. I hope you got Freiermuth potentially there. That's the good news. You still won. Love to hear it. Fantastic. Do any of you guys want to join a fantasy playoff league? Maybe MP. We'll see. If I have Sanders, is it worth adding Scott? Tough to get them both in your lineup, right, William? So probably not. Alex Collins worth starting rest of the season? I don't think so. We've seen him start, 4 straight weeks, and he's had 1 viable game in that span. They're trying to get everybody else involved. Penny gets hurt. And even still, I imagine, I don't know. Maybe, but with the way this offense is looking, no. The real argument for him was you're playing alongside Russ, you're always going to have touchdown upside, right? Nah. I don't know. If Russ can get it turned around, okay, maybe, but I don't think so. Again, Wolfpack, if you don't mind already, that thumbs up button does continue to help us grow. It would be so greatly appreciated. Thanks, brother, for your help. Of course, Eat Powder. Thank you for being here. And you're always so polite. I love you, Eat Powder. And I know you've done the super chat before to help us out. I really hope so. I really hope so. I really appreciate it is what I meant to say. I was reading Robert Moreno's God, I hope not comment. I don't even know what he's referring to, but I hope not either for you. Ingram or Higbee? Both kind of suck, but Higbee in the better offense. They're both 4 to 5 target a game. So give me Higbee because it's coming from Stafford. I am praying for this one, Devante. Rico, Devante takeover would mean the world for all my fantasy teams. Oh, he's so damn good. What is it? He has the most 30-plus yard runs in the NFL right now on less than half the carries of anyone near him. Most yards after contact on less than half the carries of anyone need him. He is just a monster. Every time he gets the rock, he looks so good. Gordon's looking okay too. And that's the rub. He's getting all the goal line work. But, man, it's looking like, he finally outsnapped him, finally outtouched him. We could be headed for after that bye week. If you read the comments from, what's his name? Shermer, the offensive coordinator, he said every week we want to ratchet this up and get him going even further. We know Shermer in the past has been a bell cow guy. I'm hoping that we see that trend take back over. We will see. Wheels up. Cheers to Devante taking over against the Chargers this week. Easy matchup, bottom 5 against the run. Let's see it happen, baby. It does not look nearly as explosive, Kurt. Jeff Wilson lost his touch, big difference from last year. It was gross. It was sad. I keep clinging to the league winner of last year, but maybe he just isn't at the same health, or he's lost some explosion. Yeah, it was sad to see. I'm going to keep holding, because if Eli's injury continues to linger, maybe he's shaking off some rust, getting those legs under him. He was the clear number 1 guy there. But yeah, it did not look like the same Jeff Wilson that scored 3 touchdowns on multiple weeks and won people leagues last year. I'll give you that, Kurt. No doubt about it. But I'm going to keep holding in most leagues. Time to drop Darrell Williams. If you got better options, that's the thing with this week's waiver wire. Is there anyone really out there worth it? If so, then yeah, I think you can. 70% of touches went to Hilliard in his first week back when he was questionable to even see work. It's clearly the Hilliard above Williams show, and Hilliard looked good, like he did. I think Williams is maybe even a better player, certainly as a receiver, but team is going to go for their first-round rookie, or not rookie anymore, but first-rounder last year. That's the draft capital's there. If there's something out there to worth dropping Darrell, I don't think he's a must-known. It's more so, is there really anything worth it this week? Not in my leagues, at least. And if anything happens to Hilliard, you got right back to low-end RB1 status. So he's a handcuff at this point. You can't have him in lineups, but I don't know that there's anything good enough to drop him for. Let me know, Rico, what you're looking at. Like, should I drop him for this guy? Played Arnold over Knox. Why, Bulldog? Oh. Tough to know. I mean, he was out there for 70% route participation, like 70% of snaps. He was out there. He was there going and getting a good workout. Didn't see a target. I don't know what happened. But why did you play him over Knox, Bulldog? I would never have allowed that. Knox was my tight end 6 on the week. Well, live and learn. Knox is a stud, baby. Can't bench him anymore. Collins or Wilson? Either. I would probably hang on to Wilson until I know more about Eli Mitchell. If Mitchell's already going to be back this week, then Wilson's more of a drop, but neither are must-holds. Let's put it that way. Pick up Elijah Moore. Oh, yeah, Tim. Everything that it takes to go get him. League winner. Season winner. Just to reiterate again, the wide receiver 1 since week 8 has caught touchdowns every single week that he didn't play with Zach Wilson. Wilson coming back, concern a little bit, but yes, Elijah Moore is the far and away number 1 pickup of the week. It's not even close. A league winner out there. DJ Johnson, full PPR. Sanders or Stevenson? I'm going Sanders. Giants, easy matchup. No Jordan Howard on this team that has recommitted more than any team in the NFL right now, running it at the highest clip. It's absolutely Miles Sanders for me. Easy matchup. Better. I don't know if I want to say better talent. They're both beasts. I love Ramondre as a Pats fan. But just a clearer workload for Miles Sanders. Whereas Ramondre, clearly Damian Harris is the starter. It's up and down. Titans a pretty good run D too. I'll go with the matchup and the surer work for Miles Sanders. Trade away Kamara? Oh, yeah, if you can. I don't know what you can get from him at this point. I don't know that anyone's sprinting out to get a guy that's injured and might not come back to him. But if you could sell high, yeah, absolutely. Get what you can. Look at our trade value chart and get a sense for that. Would you trade Gibson and Bateman for DJ Moore? No. Gibson, for more straight up, I still would probably prefer Gibson. And I love Bateman, so no. I don't like Moore. I've always been down on Moore. I love the player. Again, I always say this. I don't like Moore. And I'm like, yeah, well, I love the player. Yeah, he had a touchdown this last week, but have you seen his numbers over the last 7 weeks? He's been outside the top 40 wide receivers in 6 of the last 7. I'm not getting rid of Gibson seeing 20-plus carries in back-to-back games off the bye. No way. I know you need wide receiver help, but you can do better than DJ Moore, in my opinion. I'm a bitter ex with Eli. Yeah. Drafted him, dropped him, now bitter seeing him. Yeah, I know, DJ. I'm the same way. Drafted him, dropped him, and now I'm just like, fuck. Why did I do it? Why did I drop him? I should have hung tight. Yeah, This is what happens when you're not patient with your rookies. But, I mean, granted, Zach Wilson looked horrendous. So how are we to know that Joe Flacco would unlock the upside of this guy? Could also offer Gibson and Bateman for Deontay. See, that I would do. I like Deontay. Love Deontay. Top 10 receiver rest of season for me. That I would sign up for. Not DJ Moore. Tennessee backfield outlook with AD cut. Asked Mike Clay. Missed the beginning. To me, it's Foreman gets a big boost as like the early down guy. And then it becomes who is McNichols healthy? Because if not, like I said at the end, Hilliard, he's only 15 on my top 15 waiver wire pickups. But if I knew McNichols' injury is going to be out and hold him out, then Hilliard would be right in the middle of the pack at like 7 or 8 on my waiver wire pickups. 82 total yards, 8 catches, second highest target share of any back this year. But to me, the fact that no running back has seen more than 50% of the touches in a game this year kind of tells you everything you need to know about that backfield. 2 risky flex options this week. Moore with Zach Wilson or Kareem Hunt first game back. I'd go Elijah Moore. Facing Houston, bad secondary. The way he's rolling, I can't bench him. Ayuk, Bourne, or Davis. I'm going to go Ayuk, TJ Johnson. I saw it. I needed to see multiple weeks of this goodness. We've seen it. He's in. He's locked in for me. Easy matchup, too. Love it. Plugging Gallup and flexing Renfro on Turkey Day. Here we go. Sound like born up genre. Hoping for a happy ending. I hope you get it. Plug the Gallup, flex the Renfro, get you a happy ending and eat some turkey. Love it, Johnny Lau. Go get it. Thoughts on Tony now after 12 targets? I love to see it, but the injury now, right? Like, should you start him in DK? I don't know. Is he healthy? Love the 12 targets, but I can't say I'm confident, especially if Sterling Shepard's back. Freeman safe to plug in? I mean, I think so, Mercury. The fact that only him and Latavius Murray touched the ball. Love to see that. Now 3-headed nightmare becomes 2. And then the fact that he saw 22 touches to 12 to Latavius Murray, had 20 points. I like it. It's a very productive run scheme, and he is by far the best option in it. Yeah, I think you can plug him in there. Certainly above Zach Moss. Carter's hurt. Wilson, kind of shitty. Yeah, I would go Devonta Freeman over him. Yeah, over all those guys. Pick up Sanders more. Now, that's tough, Bulldog. I would probably if you're pretty – I was going to say, which way you're leaning. I think Sanders, like running backs are harder to come by, and that type of schedule, a team that's recommitted to the run, he looked good in his first game back, almost 6 yards a pop. I lean Sanders very slightly. You get both if you can, of course. Javonte doesn't break out this year. Well, I don't think so, Troy, because Gordon's going to be gone, and everyone has seen how good the guy is. The only thing holding him back is usage. So when Gordon's gone next year, this guy's going to go round 2, maybe low-end round 1 next year. And I think he's going to be finishing in the top 5. That's how good this motherfucker is. The value is for people who drafted him around like 6 or 7 this year and get to keep him next year. That's where you really pan out. Psycho to want to bench AGB? I mean, yes and no. He's been boom or bust. He's kind of like a rich man's Mike Williams that nobody talks about as a rich man Mike Williams. Like he's booming or he's busting. Pat's a good defense. The guy's banged up. Do you have some good options? Because otherwise, yeah, I mean, he's going to be lower. You know how we do higher, lower Hail Mary? He's going to be my lower of the week. I'm not high on him. So are you psycho? It depends on your options, but no, you really aren't. Logan Thomas IR, Javonte, and Dan Arnold on the bench. Nice. Dropping him for streaming defense. Oh, yeah, always stream defense, no doubt. We just answered this for you, right? Is Devonta Freeman a legit RB2? I just talked about this at length for you, Mercury, so I hope you paid attention. Trade CD for Saquon. If not, rewind. Full PPR, decent depth at both positions. I would probably do that. I mean, I think Saquon, not a horrible schedule moving forward, should be the every down guy. I'm into that. Bill takes away their best option. Exactly, DJ. We saw it happen with Kyle Pitts last week. We've seen it happen for 15 years. I'm not talking about just this season. He always does. So, yeah, I could see that happening totally. So just stir that into the fact that he's hurt and hasn't been that good anyways. Yeah, you definitely have to join that keeper type of setup. It's awesome. Wolfpack, thank you again so much for being here. I know it's a little early, so we still got a good amount of you, the regulars here. Great to see you. If those of you catching the replay, if you missed us at 7 p.m., our usual time, I apologize, but you know how Thanksgiving goes. One of those weeks, we're just going to be up and down. I do know the one show I know I can confirm for the rest of the week is at 10:30 on Thanksgiving. Me and the Truth will be doing our usual sit start. You know how it's usually 7 p.m. We're going for the kickoff. Well, we have a 12 o'clock kickoff. So we're going to pregame. We're going to have some Bloody Marys and beers and get ready for Thanksgiving. So 10:30 on Thursday, maybe a show tomorrow. I don't know exactly what the schedule looks like, a travel, all that stuff. A lot going on. So I'll try to get a ranking show in for those of you that are around. But definitely you can bank on 10:30 on Thursday. We'll be live with my man, The Truth, for your usually show. You're welcome, Will, and everybody else out there. Again, on your way out, if you haven't hit that thumbs up, it does great. I don't keep asking for no reason. It does help us out. You find all our content, rotostreetjournal.com, read and feed Fantasy Wolves, podcast form, Fantasy Fullback Dive. That's what you prefer. Wolfpack. To anyone that I won't see the rest of the week, I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving and a world full of fancy sheep, Wolfpack. Be that wolf. Later, guys.